Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Hamlin Leo lecture, A Sea Change for Lake Superior, an Education and Stewardship Initiative with John Shepard from Hamlin Center for Global Environmental Education. My name is Molly Glevy. I work in the Alumni Relations Office here at Hamlin, and I'm so happy to welcome many of you to this Leo lecture, and for those who might be watching at a later time, those of us who are, in Minnesota or spent any time in Minnesota, I think Lake Superior is holds a special place in our hearts. So we're very excited to talk to John today and learn more about this project. I'm going to start us off and then hand it over. Some basic information about today's webinar. Of course, you are muted, your camera is off. If you have a question for our speaker, please go ahead and use the Q&A icon in the dashboard. John will take questions at the very end of the presentation, but go ahead and put questions into the Q&A as they come to mind. If you want to add anything or if you have any troubleshooting you need done, go ahead and use the chat function. We will be monitoring that as we go. I'd also like to mention that on May 9th, we have our last Leo lecture of the academic year called AI Among Us, Navigating the Future of Coexistence. With Dean Marcela Kostahova and Associate Provost Irina Makarevich. So we're really looking forward to that. You can find information about it on our website. Again, Friday, May 9th, same time, also on Zoom. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to John Shepard. John, take it away.
All right. Very good. Well, great to have all you with us today. We did a webinar for the Leo Lecture Series, I think it was in January or February, about our work in Hawaii. But today we're going to be focusing on the Great Lakes and specifically on Lake Superior. Just a few words of introduction. I'm John Shepard. I'm the Assistant Director of the Center for Global Environmental Education. And I've been in that position at Hamlin for almost 30 years now. And over that time, it's been really exciting for me, and I think for our center, which has grown significantly, not so much in size, but in terms of our impact around the world. And just a little bit about that, who we are. So we are part of the School of Education and Leadership. And so we have a very strong grounding in work with K-12 teachers, creating educational resources for students, professional development for teachers. But we also, over the years, have evolved a very strong focus in public education and outreach as well. And the vision that guides our center is the idea of fostering environmental literacy and stewardship in citizens of all ages. So it's a very broad vision that gets me excited in the morning waking up, and also really connects us we're very outward facing. So we work all around the country, literally in all 50 states, with developing and delivering educational resources around environmental issues and science-based education, again, for multiple audiences. So you're going to get a good dose of that orientation and get a sense of how we operate, specifically focusing on Lake Superior, a place probably near and dear to many of you on this joining us today. It's an extraordinary resource. So I'm going to start out with a very brief video that we produced. It's part of an hour-long documentary, which is called A Sea Change for Superior, and I'm going to be sharing segments from that program as well as other work that we're doing. This particular one kind of places Lake Superior, characterizes its extraordinary features and places it in kind of a global context. So it's a couple minutes long, and I will play that next.
We live on a blue planet. Though 97% of the Earth's water is salt water, making up the world's oceans, and it's not readily available for our use, only 3% is fresh water, and only a third of that water is accessible. Almost all of the rest is either frozen in glaciers or unreachable below ground. That makes surface fresh water such a precious resource. And among the world's freshwater lakes, Superior's very name suggests how extraordinary it is. It is the largest lake in the world by surface area. It contains 84% of North America's surface freshwater reserves.
Lake Superior is the greatest of the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes watershed holds 20% of all the fresh surface water on the planet, and Lake Superior alone holds 10% of all the fresh surface water on the planet. It has enough volume or capacity to absorb the waters of all the other Great Lakes and still have room to spare. It's truly a superlative, globally significant water body.
The fact that we here in the middle of North America, here in Duluth, Minnesota, can look out our windows and see ships which may have come from really anywhere on Earth, it is a really remarkable thing.
This is the largest freshwater port in the world, routinely moving goods across the globe, out of the center of the United States to far-flung countries in Europe. They ship to Australia, they ship to parts of Asia. So it's really a remarkable connection for our people, but also to a global economy.
The thing about Lake Superior is it's just loaded with superlatives. It's just so big, so vast, so beautiful. It's the wildest of the Great Lakes. It has the most wilderness-like shorelines, and it is the one lake that people can visit and get a glimmer of what it might have been like to be here pre-European settlement. It is the most intact of the Great Lakes ecosystems that we have here in North America.
Okay, so that little video just gives you a snapshot of some of the things that really put Lake Superior on the map. Again, that's an excerpt from an hour-long documentary that I will be sharing more of. But I want to give a little background as to how we got into doing this Sea Change for Superior program. And that leads us back a few years to when we initiated a kind of a multifaceted public education and stewardship campaign, our Lake Superior initiative. And I just want to give you a flavor of that. So it involves multiple elements of, if you think about how do we reach out into a geographic region, Western Lake Superior, the upper Midwest, to really effectively reach a broad audience in terms of our mission or our vision, fostering environmental literacy and stewardship. So over the decades, we have evolved a series of approaches to doing this. And you can see 4 of the main elements of our initiative on Lake Superior. On the left there, we have a network of what we call Multimedia Gallery exhibit kiosks. These are large format, multi-touch computer kiosks, essentially a museum in a box. We have over 30 of them, and I'll talk more about that network and how that works. But that's a major way we impact visitors in primary spots that are heavily trafficked by both residents and visitors. And we have a smartphone app that's a companion to that has all the same content that's on the Multimedia Gallery. And then we take that same multimedia content and repurpose it again for K-12 classrooms and for teachers, and that's delivered online. So we have a full online program about Lake Superior. And then a fourth piece is creating these large hour-long public television documentaries. And so those are the first 4 elements. The fifth one is we actually do in-person professional development programs for teachers. And in the Lake Superior region, they're focused in the St. Louis River estuary, which is the estuary that forms the ports of Duluth and Lake Superior. These are 3-day long intensive hands-on experiences for teachers. We'll have 20 to 30 teachers each year. So that's a very important element. And then the last piece is this hands-on stewardship action piece called Adopt a Storm Drain. So this is a program that we run nationally. It's the largest program of its type in the country. And the way it works is citizens, residents, or teachers, a school can adopt a storm drain in front of their house or in front of the school, pledge to keep pollutants out of the storm drain, and then cities actually contract with us to deliver this service. So the city of Duluth and multiple cities in that region are participating in this program. So a lot of our media work is kind of enlightening people as to the importance of natural and cultural traditions within the region, and then driving people or encouraging people to become active stewards. And this is one of the ways that they do that, among others. So the first hour-long documentary we'd done in the Lake Superior region was completed in 2022, Northern Nights, Starry Skies. This was a co-production with PBS North, which is the PBS affiliate in Duluth. And it looks kind of a celebration of the extraordinary dark skies of our region, dark sky sanctuaries that have been established at Voyageurs National Park, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and Quetico Provincial Parks. And we work closely with a Ojibwe photographer who's based in Grand Portage, Travis Nowitzki. This is a photo of his, and he kind of narrates this journey that he takes through the region, exploring and celebrating really incredible. That group of dark sky sanctuaries is the largest in the world, largest area that's been designated as a sanctuary. So that's what that program is about. It has been played extensively throughout the region and nationally on Twin Cities Public Television here in the Twin Cities. Won an Emmy Award from the Midwest Emmy chapter, and has played at multiple film festivals. So it reached a very broad audience. So that was our first documentary. And as we've done work on that documentary and gathering media resources and making media resources for this larger Lake Superior initiative, one of our experiences took us to working closely with a family that runs a sailing charter sailing service out of Knife River, and you can see the family there, Katya and Mark Gordon. And they are citizen scientists, and alerted us to this idea, to this fact that you see at the bottom of the screen there. Lake Superior is one of the fastest warming lakes in the world, which really got our attention. I mean, if you're familiar with Lake Superior, you know it is famously frigid and clear and rather pristine. So the fact that it is among the fastest warming lakes in the world, the largest lake in the world, really struck us. And when we started learning about this, we thought this is an important story. People ought to know about this. And so working with PBS North again, they were very interested in supporting our work and telling this story. So over about a year or so, we took on this production, raised the money ourselves in this case to produce the program, and conducted a series of interviews with the folks that you see listed there, or the types of folks. So total of 9 scientists who are studying the lake and studying how climate change is impacting the lake. And I should make the point, as you will learn, the lake is warming because of impacts of climate change. So we're going to take a deeper dive into that. We really have been focused strongly on working with the Ojibwe community. So a couple of artists who have been wonderful partners are featured in this. Our sailors, Mark and Katya Gordon, commercial fishermen, and people studying the fisheries of Lake Superior and some of the things that are happening there, and then resource managers who are looking into and responsible for managing important environments in and around Lake Superior. And then finally, young people. So we do a focus, as you'll see, on how young people are engaging with some of these issues. So Next, I'm going to play the opening to this documentary, and the program is divided into three parts. The first is called Legacy, and we really wanted to help people appreciate, what is extraordinary about Lake Superior. And the last video I showed you is part of that Legacy segment of the documentary. But we also, as part of this whole effort, Tracy Ferdine, our director of our center, along with some friends, came up with this brilliant idea of documenting a long distance record-setting swim in Lake Superior by a group of world-class marathon swimmers, and having that story of their experience swimming from Split Rock Lighthouse to Duluth, have that story be kind of a thread that runs through this whole program. So you'll meet, you'll meet one of the swimmers in particular and hear more of that story.
There's always something new to see in Lake Superior. Just swimming at a new beach or going a little bit further down the beach in my training and seeing what's around that next corner. I can find myself pretty far away from my towel before I'll turn around. It's a resource and a wonder.
The river flows seamlessly out and becomes the lake. And all of our rivers around Lake Superior become the lake.
Gitchigami. The Fond du Lac people were known as Gitchigami Inini, the people of Lake Superior. There's a spirit in the lake. A lot of people feel that spirit. The Anishinaabe realize that as well.
There's no place like Lake Superior. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place and incredibly precious. I think it's really important for everyone who comes to this lake to really understand how precious it is, how unique it is. It carries 10% of the world's fresh water. And water is becoming the most precious resource there is.
It's just so big and so cold and so pure. This huge pool of fresh water. It makes you pause. It makes you think. It's just part of the soul of this region.
I'm Karen Zemlin. I'm a lifelong Minnesotan. I started swimming in open water with my dad when I was 14, and we did a lot of swims together. We started swimming in Lake Superior when he was training to swim in the English Channel. You have to train your body and your mind for open water, cold water swimming. We're lucky to have such a big body of water for open water swimmers to train in.
Karen and a team of 5 seasoned marathon swimmers devised a plan to attempt a distance record relay swim for Lake Superior in late August 2023. Their idea was to swim nonstop without wetsuits from Split Rock Lighthouse to Duluth. The swimmers would swim 1-hour rotations over the 46 miles. When not in the water, they would rest and warm up aboard the 68-foot Soulmates 2. The 36-foot Imagine would lead the way with Paul Vogue in his kayak as a safety escort. In preparation, they held a practice session in July.
For today, our goal is to swim that shape of a box. So there's 3 GPS coordinates.
On the team with Karen was 62-year-old Jeff Everett, 64-year-old Craig Collins, 51-year-old Casey McGrath, 28-year-old Seth Batesold, and 57-year-old Mike Miller.
We're no spring chickens here, except Seth.
So they come with a lot of experience of their own, and we're going to lean into that.
Super toasty in this wetsuit.
On practice day, wetsuits were allowed, a luxury that the swimmers wouldn't have a month later.
Today is a good proof of concept that this time of year, during this swim window at the end of August, that this is achievable. It's a slow, subtle process, but it's getting warmer. So we're one of those invasive species as the lake warms up, the open water swimmers.
This is the first long relay in Lake Superior in an event that's over 45 miles. It's substantial because we know how fast those conditions can change.
Ready?
Sure am.
Okay, so the day is here. How are you feeling right now?
I'm super excited. Think that the water is a great temperature. I guess I didn't get a read on it. I heard it was maybe 65 even. So that's plenty warm.
Plenty warm.
Plenty warm.
All right.
Any big body of water, you have to invite its cooperation. Sometimes I think, because no matter what, it can win.
All right. Well, there you got a little flavor of what that adventure was like. And I'll tell you that process of filming that was extraordinary, a remarkable challenge. We had a videographer on board the ship who also had a drone. We had a film crew on shore who were filming from shore. And we had no idea if that was actually going to be able to work because conditions could have changed. In fact, we did experience some significant challenges. I'm not going to tell you how it turns out. You'll have to watch the full documentary to see that. We'll get a link to you. This is all viewable online whenever you'd like. So, but it turned out very successfully, and it actually really underscored the theme of our project of really revealing how significantly the surface waters of Lake Superior have warmed up. So now I'm going to play another little clip introducing two of the Ojibwe artists that we've been working with who helped to tell this story as well.
In Lake Superior, the great panther, the guardian of the copper at Isle Royal, has his lair underwater. It's always associated with water. They used to have ceremonies to the great panther where they would make offerings and sink them to the great panther that was down under the water. Because, of course, he controlled the storms. So that if you were a commercial fisherman or just even traveling on Lake Superior, you did that in order to ensure safe travel. You never take Lake Superior for granted. You never trust it. It can be dangerous, it can be deadly.
After hearing a little more stories about the Great Lakes,
always just thought it was really intriguing to think about that because I lived right next to Lake Superior. And anytime that I was near it, I felt the power and the energy of the lake itself. In my mind, Bishop is a protector of the water. Big giant cat, sort of embodies that spirit. Given that it's a protector of the water, to me, that sort of makes it a little noble. So even if it's presented in some stories as being kind of a menace, I see it as having its own story and its own reasoning. One of the themes of my work is that I like to look at these characters at a different perspective. And I want to frame the Mishabiju. There can be a parent, to a cub.
A lot of Ojibwe medicine bags have the image of the panther with a kind of zigzag line on top, meaning it's underwater. And they show often two of them, two different colors. So one panther is evil and can poison you, can blow pestilence out of its mouth, kill you. But the other one has all kinds of knowledge that if you give him the right gifts and the right honor, he'll give you all kinds of wisdom.
All right. So now I'm going to dive into really the heart of the program, and this is we have three parts to this documentary. The first was called Legacy. This second part is Sea Change, and this is the part where we look at what's happening to the lake under climate change.
Lake Superior is a remarkably cold lake compared to small lakes around it, but also Lake Superior is significantly colder than the other Great Lakes. It's actually a lot further north and sits in a much colder climate than the other Great Lakes. The other really important aspect is that it's just really deep. So in the spring, when things are warming up, you have to warm up that entire bulk of the water, and it just takes a very long time. My name is Jay Austin. I'm a professor at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I work in the Department of Physics and Astronomy, but also here at the Large Lakes Observatory, which is a group of scientists on campus, all committed to developing a better understanding of how large lakes around the world function. Winter conditions play a huge role in determining what happens the following summer, as much as whether we're having a warm or a cold summer. Basically, since about 1980, we've seen a dramatic increase compared to what happened the previous 80 years. The lakes are 4 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer now in the summer than they were 40 years ago. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that we are having much milder winters, which means less ice. And again, those winter conditions end up rolling forward into what happens in the summer. And so it's a combination of milder winters and warmer summers that are causing surface temperatures to be measurably and statistically warmer now than they were 40 years ago.
What we've seen under climate change is not only is the lake warming, but we're seeing an increase in large storm events. In 2012, we had a 500-year storm event in Duluth, Minnesota. Animals were swimming out of the zoo. You had photos of people in kayaks at ATM machines. It was just extraordinary storm event that gutted the street system and broke different parts of the sewer system. It was a really extraordinary storm event. Then in 2016, just 4 years later, and 60 miles to the east along the south shore of Lake Superior, we have a 1,000-year storm event that strikes Ashland, Wisconsin, blew out federal highways, blew out all sorts of culverts and bridges throughout the area. And then 2 years later, 2018, we have another 1,000-year storm event that hammers Ashland, Wisconsin again, and then stretches all the way to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and pounds Houghton, Michigan, Hancock, Michigan. And these storm events created sediment plumes that were so large that they're visible from space. These are storms that are only supposed to happen every 500 years, only supposed to happen every 1,000 years because of their severity. And the South Shore of Lake Superior had 3 of them in 6 years. We felt like we were seeing climate change right before our eyes.
So that gives you an introduction into some of the issues there. There is more to that story. We also look at the increase in invasive species and algae blooms, which is the appearance of harmful algae is something that is essentially unprecedented in Lake Superior. It's a common problem in Lake Erie, some of the lower lakes that are much warmer, shallower, with much more agriculture within their watersheds. So that's another issue that we look at here before jumping into this final segment, which is our stewardship segment. And this is where, again, we kind of look at how young people are engaging with this issue in the region.
When you look at who is going to solve climate change and who is really going to make the difference, it's the young people, the folks who have not ever experienced life without climate change. They're the ones who are going to be solving this.
It's really hard to live on our boat for weeks at a time and not be changed in some way.
We take on a crew of young adults, college-age kids, and we sail from port to port and we visit different schools.
Who can tell me what invasive species is? My name is Brandy Shapland and I'm 25. I was interested in doing sea change because I love sailing and because I also am very passionate about the environment. So this seemed like a really good opportunity to kind of tie those two things together.
The crew, you know, they're doing the presentations, they're helping with the cleaning and the cooking and all that kind of stuff and sailing the boat. Okay.
I have a really deep connection with the lake just because I see it's such a powerful being. You know, it's alive. Being able to see it every single day is powerful, and watching it change and watching the weather roll in. See how the waves can pick up so quickly just in an hour. And we've had days where we've had 6-foot waves and you're crashing around and people are getting seasick.
You start pulling deep.
It can be a very scary experience at first.
I have no sailing experience.
Go around this side.
To have your house moving all different directions and up and down, and you're feeling nauseous and maybe cold and tired and scared, and it can be a little overwhelming. But I think having a captain like Mark, who's always calm in those situations and really knows what he's doing. Learning how to walk is a really big thing too. And there's lines and winches and kayaks, everything you can imagine on top of the boat. And so when you're out there in high seas and being able to navigate the boat, and that is a really big skill.
All right, we're sailing.
Having that connection and that closeness, 1 with the crew and then 2 with the students, was really powerful. We work mainly with 5th and 6th graders and do a lot of education on how climate change, plastic pollution, and aquatic invasive species are affecting Lake Superior. And really try to focus on what the kids can do in their own lives to make a difference.
We show them a map of Lake Superior and we invite them to commit to some change they're going to make. And if they do, they get to sign the map.
Avoid single-use.
Avoid single-use plastic. I love it.
Plant more trees.
Drive electric cars. Never use a single-use water bottle again. When I know idling cars. Replant trees. Toss something in the trash. You look at the number. It's like, can I recycle this?
try not to make it too scary because climate change can be a very scary subject for a lot of students, for a lot of young people.
One way we help them to talk about it in a really fun way is to get them on the local radio stations. Each group will either be working on plastics, invasives, or climate change. You write down who's going to say what here. And then when you're ready, we bring a recorder in and we record it. And then we will send it to the radio station at the Two Harbors Community Radio. And they play them just at odd moments during their day on the radio. And they love doing this.
Hello, our names are Lila, Dominic, Daxton, Laura, and Gino. And today we're going to talk about the climate change on Lake Superior.
We record them doing little 2-minute snippets.
Fires, floods, and drought, as well as invasive species and warmer temperatures, are taking their toll on the forests, and it shows.
Wow.
Do you think that's
I think that was great. We record those as podcasts and send them to the Two Harbors Community Radio Station where they play them throughout the summer.
Thanks for listening. This is Lila, Dominic, Daxton, Laura, and Gino from the North Shore Community School. Till next time.
All right, so that is kind of our walkthrough of the Sea Change for Superior documentary. Again, it's an hour-long program, and if you're interested in seeing the whole thing, we'll make sure you get the link to that. So you produce a program like this, it gets broadcast all over Minnesota and the region. It's now being available nationwide, being distributed to PBS stations. But, you know, our intent is to really leverage this opportunity to have the biggest possible impact. So again, film festivals is one way we do that. It was nominated for a regional Emmy, has played on multiple film festivals throughout our region, and will be playing in more of them, including Twin Cities Film Fest. And then going back to this multifaceted strategy I mentioned earlier, this program has been segmented into 14 segments, and it plays in those segments on our kiosks, on our smartphone app, in our K-12 program as well. And just to say a little bit more about that, we have over 30 of these kiosks are in virtually all of the major places where people go along the North Shore. They're in the major state parks, all of the bigger museums in Canal Park, Madeline Island, you can see all the way up to Grand Portage. And then we also, working with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, we have them placed in the highway rest areas along I-35 between Duluth and the Twin Cities, and in some retail places and museums in the Twin Cities as well. And then again, I mentioned our online program for schools. So this is the main menu screen of that program. And, you know, we work hard to engage with teachers and school districts everywhere to make sure that this content is available. You can see that link in the lower left corner is this documentary we're just looking at in those 14 different segments. And then the Night Sky has our Northern Night Starry Skies documentary. There's probably 6 hours of content in this program, dozens of videos, interactive modules, and so forth. So really a rich learning experience. And through all of these efforts regionally, since we started this whole initiative, since 2022, we've engaged well more than 800,000 residents, and we are able to track this with precision because these kiosks track every single click that is ever made on one of these things, and we monitor them remotely, but also our work with teachers, students, and visitors. And because that relay swim really was a major media event, we had extensive coverage, over 25 media stories regionally, also got picked up by national public radio. So it was broadcast nationally, and well over 4 million people nationwide have been impacted by this. So that kind of gives you a sense of how we approach this idea of a strategy. I mentioned earlier, we're working very closely with multiple Ojibwe bands in our region, and we now have multiple projects with the Fond du Lac band that have kind of grown out of this experience. I'm going to be sharing a little bit in a moment about our next documentary, which is focused on the St. Louis River estuary, which you see there on the right-hand side of that map, but also this is a screen grab from a language learning program that we created in collaboration with the Fond du Lac Band. This is the bilingual version, so you see some English words there. This is an interactive program where you click on different locations and hear descriptions and photos and stuff in Ojibwe and in English as well. So we're building on that. We're expanding that right now. And then we have another documentary in the works, which is focused on the impact of wildfires in our region, northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, but particularly in northern Minnesota. And the videographer that we work most closely with in the Sea Change program is embedded with the wildfire crew at Fond du Lac on the Fond du Lac Reservation, and is capturing their experiences and their cultural orientation to managing the forest through fire, which is a long, an integral part of Ojibwe culture, as it is many indigenous cultures. And so we look in this video documentary at the impacts of climate change on northern forests, how those forests have been managed historically, and what the impacts of climate change will be. So that's a piece that we're very excited about. And we can share more about that, share links to that as well. We expect this program, it depends a little bit on how the fires occur over this upcoming fire season. If there's significant fires, we expect to be able to get this project done within this calendar year. And then lastly, I'm going to share a little clip from our current documentary that we are in the midst of right now, which we're calling Estuaries in the Balance. Estuaries are very important, ecologically important environmental areas in all bodies of water. So an estuary, by definition, is a place where a river flows into either a lake, such as Lake Superior, or an ocean. And in places where there's a semi-sheltered bay, you get a mixing of the two types of water, which is the river water and either Lake Superior or salt water, if it's an ocean environment. And those are very, very productive, biologically productive areas. So the way we're doing this story, the Estuaries in the Balance, we're focusing on two estuaries. One of them is the St. Louis River estuary that you see here, which is the largest freshwater estuary in the United States, a vast area that is both biologically, ecologically very important, also has a long history of damage through industrial development. And so we're telling that story. It is the traditional homeland of the Fond du Lac Band, which is now located on the reservation that you can see outlined in yellow there. So we kind of tell that whole story of the band's history in the region, how it became dislocated from the heart of its homeland in the estuary to an area upstream, but how they're still very much engaged in these environments. And then we also look at an estuary complex on the Bad River Reservation, which is near Ashland, Wisconsin. You can see Madeline Island at the top there. And this within the reservation is the largest wild rice resource in the Great Lakes. The Kakagon and Bad River sloughs are among the world internationally renowned pristine estuary environment. And it has been managed by the band throughout time because it's entirely within their reservation. So we are able to tell these two stories of two important estuary areas and the history of how they have evolved over time. So I'll play a quick introduction to that documentary, and then we'll take questions.
The Rock Nation. In English, the rocks are inanimate. In our language, in Ojibwe, they're animate. They're alive. They have motion. They have spirit. They have power. The Rock Nation came first. The mountains, stone people.
The ranges have yielded thousands of millions of tons of rich iron ore to the great shovels, which cut grand canyons into the woodland.
Next was the seedlings, the grasses, the bushes, the trees. They came next in order. The ceilings, the grasses, the trees give us the oxygen to live.
Our forests are falling with appalling rapidity. Like spendthrifts, we are living not upon the interest, but upon the capital. Carl Schurz, Secretary of the Interior, 1881.
Next came the animals, flyers, four-leggeds, the swimmers, the crawlers. They came next. They gave us the brotherhood.
When the estuary was at its worst, the fish skin would slide off the fish when they touched it. People turned their backs on the river because it was so horrible.
Last was Anishinaabe. We were lowered here. We were put here from the Star World. This estuary and this Gitche Ojibwe Gamizi Bid, this is the center of all things. All good things come from here.
During
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. As I mentioned, this Estuaries in the Balance documentary, we're in the thick of it right now. We're going to do more filming this spring and summer, and it will be edited and completed by next fall. It has already had one segment that we've already had broadcast on the Great Lakes Now public television series, which is part of Detroit Public TV. And that we have a partnership with them. So as we do segments of these programs, they're being broadcast throughout the Great Lakes region on that program. And then once the whole thing is done, once the whole documentary is done, we'll be working, in this case, with Twin Cities Public Television instead of PBS North up in Duluth. So that'll be our broadcast partner for this one, as well as the upcoming Rekindled documentary. So that tells the story, and I'm happy to take comments and questions at this point in the time that we have left. So,
John, do you want me to feed you some of the questions?
Sure, if you would.
Can I actually have one to start off with. In the work that you've done with either your partners or some of the colleagues you've worked with, have people been talking about climate migration in this context in the work that you're doing? Have you come up on that topic?
Sure. In fact, as many of you may know, Duluth has been talked about as a climate refuge. Duluth has experienced quite a boom in people moving there from, coastal regions in the South, regions that are more susceptible to many of the significant impacts of climate change. Not that Duluth is an escape from them either, but it certainly, we don't have, we do have significant wildfire risks, although for cities like that, it's probably less of a risk than it has been in Los Angeles within the last 6 months or so. That is the biggest fire. That is the overall greatest risk to people living on the land in northern Minnesota is wildfire risk due to climate change. But certainly that has come up as a topic. Yeah.
All right, let me get into these questions. Are you tracking the climate justice education bill in Minnesota, and have you provided testimony for this bill?
We have not provided any testimony for sure. Kind of tracking, we have multiple partners who are engaged in climate education work. Climate Generation is a nonprofit that works with young people. It was founded by Will Steger, who is actually one of the co-founders of our center back in 1990. So we're tuned into those efforts, but have not had an opportunity to actually contribute, by providing testimony.
How do you best reach the schools that you work with? Top down through the district itself, or bottom up through teachers, or both?
I'd say both. We have been at this long enough. These institutes that we do, I mentioned, we've been doing them in the Duluth area for the last 3 years, but they go back to the very beginning of our center. So among educators, we have some 10,000 or more on a mailing list of people who have participated in our programs. And so, we kind of have our network of individual teachers that we continually reach out to. We do our own webinars, as well as these face-to-face institutes and other continuing studies programs. But we also work to connect with curriculum directors within school districts. So in the Twin Cities, in Duluth, in places where we're very active, we do reach out kind of those higher levels in order to make a lot of our resources available to people.
I'm not sure if you said this in the in your presentation or not. How long did it take to produce the Sea Change documentary?
Basically, within a year. I'm trying to think exactly. Both of those projects, the Sea Change and the Northern Night Starry Skies, it took roughly a year. Northern Night Starry Skies is a little shorter actually, but we began filming the Sea Change documentary in the winter. There's a segment that I did not share where the ice cover, the amount of ice cover on the lake is very important, and we went out with some researchers who were studying conditions under the ice. So it started in the winter, and that was like in January of 2023, and we'd finished filming by August or September and got editing done by November. So that was about 9 months, and similar to the other one. So yeah, they're kind of like that sort of time commitment.
One of our alums wants to say, just an FYI, there's a hearing today in the Senate office building, 95 University Avenue, from 3 to 5 on the 2025 omnibus bill, and this could include a Wild Rice Act to protect wild rice. If the committee votes for it, supporters are trying to pack the room to encourage yay votes.
Great.
FYI for folks. Also want to mention that Karen Zemlin in the documentary is a proud Hamline grad and a Hamline Hall of Fame swimmer. So we were really excited when we saw her accomplishments there. That was really fun.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'd forgotten to mention that myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Have you or your partner seen a drop in federal or state funding?
Yeah, that's been significant. So these projects we've been doing that I've been describing to you, most of the funding we have gotten has been sourced from NOAA, and it's distributed through the Minnesota DNR through what's called their coastal grant program. We've gotten 3 of them, each for $100,000, and we have a 4th one that we're just starting in on. So far, that all looks good. This one that we're just starting on, which is a big project with the Fond du Lac Band to document culturally important sites within the St. Louis River estuary as part of a process they are doing to get a cultural heritage corridor established in the St. Louis River estuary through the National Register of Historic Places. And this is a strategy they are using so they have more influence on how these important cultural sites, which include burial sites, former village sites, sacred sites of various kinds. They want to try and be able to exert more control over impacts of development and so forth on those sites. So we have a grant to do documentary filming, telling the stories of these sites that then they can use that as part of the process of getting their cultural heritage corridor established. And then we'll include elements of that documentary video work in our outreach initiative, elements that they are happy to share with a broader audience. So anyway, that is also we have one of these coastal grants that's funding that, and we're hoping, so far it's looking okay. We have a major project in the Gulf of Mexico, all 5 Gulf states doing very similar kinds of work that I've been describing here. That also has funding from NOAA. And so far we've gotten a significant amount of funding, but the future of it's part of the Biden's climate initiative. And so some of that's going to be jeopardized. So, and then we had expected a significant bit of funding from EPA in Duluth, and they have an important office there in Duluth. It's the Ecology and Toxicology Research Facility, which is likely to be shut down, and the funding we are expecting from them is not going to be happening. So definitely we are being strongly impacted by that concern.
All right, John, I have one more question for you. How are Hamline undergrads involved in some of this work, either through coursework or otherwise?
The main way we've are connected to and involved with undergrads is through the digital media arts program. And we've had a number of students who have done internships with us, helping in some of these productions, the media production work that we're doing. And a couple of them have, after graduating, continued to work with us over time. So that's been the main way. You know, we certainly do connect with other faculty. Our Northern Night Starry Skies included, you know, work with faculty who were involved in related issues and stuff. So, you know, we are connected, but with undergraduates, it's primarily through those internships.
All right. I think that brings us to an end. Thank you so much, John. And I know you mentioned it already, but we'll work together to send a link to the documentary out to folks who are here today, and we'll put this Leo lecture up on our website too, so folks can find it afterwards. Thank you so much, John.
You are so welcome. It was really fun to share this. So thanks.
It's amazing work.
For your interest. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Until next time. Bye.